We have here with us today three extremely knowledgeable and respected speakers. Before we introduce the speakers, would like to request the participants to put the question in the live chat box during their talks. The question raised will be screened by our moderator and taken up at the end of each session. I would first and foremost like to welcome our first speaker for the day, none other than a very eminent personality in the field of environment, Dr. Prasad Moda, who will be talking on environmental governance post-COVID-19. He is an executive president of Environmental Management Center and director of eConnect Knowledge Foundation. He has completed his MTech in Environment Science and Engineering from IIT Bombay and has completed his doctorate in environmental engineering. He was a professor at Center of Environmental Science and Engineering at IIT Bombay. He has authorized and executed more than 500 consulting reports and trained over more than 10,000 professionals and has worked closely with several chambers of commerce in India such as CII, FI, MCCI, IMC, MCCIA, and BCCI. Dr. Moda has also published several books on environmental management and has received several awards and recognition. His name has been listed in Mercury's Who since 2008. He was also elected by American Association of Environmental Engineers as board certified environmental engineering member for his work done in research, teaching, professional practice. Would request Dr. Moda to kindly address the gathering. The dice is over to you, sir.
Thank you, Sheetal. Am I audible to all of you?
Yes, sir.
All right, I'm going to share my slide screen. Let me see how it works. Can you see the screen?
Not yet, sir.
Not yet? Okay, let's try again.
I think you need to, yeah, I think yes.
Yeah. Now we can see, sir.
You can see the screen now? All right.
Yeah, not the screen, yeah, right now, yes.
Now it's okay?
Yeah.
Nilesh?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, Nilesh, for inviting me. And I must say at the outset, I'm so delighted to be here and very much impressed with all the initiative you have been taking last couple of years on these awards. I'm sure that this will go a long way, not just as I see getting applicants from India, but I saw that you mentioned there are also applications now coming from overseas. So I wish you all the best to continue with this very, very impressive initiative. Now I'm going to speak very briefly today on the subject of environmental governance post COVID-19. And when I do this presentation, I think what is going to happen is going to raise few questions. I'm going to put them little implicitly, but then I'm sure that you may have something to say, contribute, or ask me more questions, and we could take it post my presentation in the form of a short discussion. So let me begin now, taking you through my slides. Let's first look at what has changed because of the COVID-19 pandemic. The first thing that we are all now perceiving risk that is globally understood. That's important. Everybody is talking about it across the world. It's also brought into a very important question of the importance of our healthcare infrastructure. So, in many cases, we have seen, including countries like us, that we have realized that we are pretty weak when it comes to the healthcare infrastructure for all, and for all part is very important. We went through a difficult phase of making a choice of lives versus or lives and livelihoods. I think this was something very hard decision. We are living with that decision even today as we have closed out the lockouts and we are unlocking back again our lives. And that is leading us to a constrained lifestyle. That's a big change because that's affecting not just economy but also in many ways our social behavior, and also giving us at the same time to rethink, and could be then a case of rebooting the economy or rebooting of the development itself. So these are, I would highlight as some of the very important changes that we have seen after the COVID-19 pandemic. When it comes to environmental and social governance, I'm sure we would see that there is an influence going to be on the policy and the regulations. Of course, we have a structure where we have policy regulations and we have the monitoring and enforcement, which is often done to ensure that there is a safe management of the residues. And then we have to do reporting on the performance of that monitoring and enforcement and how effective have been the policies, and then communicate the outcomes to the stakeholders. And we are going to see in all these three tiers of governance a change because of the pressure coming for a recovery in terms of the economic development, and it could in some cases even influence the way today we are perceiving environmental clearance, which is a part of this mechanism. How are we addressing the workspace health and safety? And how are we also looking at the labor laws? And many of you have seen already that in all these three areas, there has been a discussion, there has been an effort where ease of doing business will be given more preference. So that's a challenge, that how do we at the same time ensure protection of the environment? How do we ensure safety and also the livelihoods as well as fair work practices for the labor? So that's a balancing act. Some countries have taken this, in fact, in a different way, that an opportunity to stress more and more on sustainability and long-term development goals, like as I said earlier, rebooting. Whereas countries in economy stress, highly populous, are finding it hard to set long-term goals and maybe get into some compromises. And this is a point of worry and discussions. You also see a change going to be in supply chains. In fact, few supply chains are now broken. There will be more preference, logically so, for local sourcing. And there could be also an influence on the codes of conduct that we would expect across the supply chains. Again, this could be an area of some compromise. And then while we look at the economy in terms of how do we boost it, how do we recover it, there is an opportunity of circularity, that how do we introduce circular economy now. But the challenge is that how do we connect the dots? Remember, in India, circular economy very much depends on the informal sector. And then how do you engage in the post-COVID times the informal sector, and how do we look at the activity of recycling itself? These become also issues of concern. There are ways to address these challenges, and I'm just highlighting in this slide what could be done, given all these pressures on one side on economy, the other side our interest to protect the environment and ensure a resource security. One of the strategies is to use what we use a term programmatic environmental impact assessment. Normally, what we find in India, what we do is a project level impact assessment. But a programmatic approach basically embeds all the best practices as defaults in the proposition. So, for example, you may not need an environmental impact assessment to say that you must have electrostatic precipitators in a thermal power plant, or you may have to insist on a black liquor recovery in an agro-based pulp and paper unit, and such impositions as best practices, if they get embedded, then what we call this as a programmatic approach to environmental impact assessment. It has worked well in many countries, and I think this is a time for us to consider moving from a project EIA a little higher to address these concerns through a programmatic EIA. There are also concepts in the development in terms of minimum environmental care sizes, and here is a huge area where the bankers and the lenders need to be educated. How do we make a good use of zoning, defining exclusions, what kind of development we would not like to have because of the sensitivity to the environment and constrained resources, and how do we bridge connect between biodiversity and business. There are different ways, therefore, very different innovations one could do in all these areas while doing this balancing act, which I talked about earlier. We are also going to see a fair amount of dilemma with the investors because the risks in lending are going to be there now. Very important consideration. How do we look at risk now differently? The canvas is changing. The investors also are worried because they suspect there could be weaker national environmental and social governances. There is going to be a shift in the investment profiles across geographies. There will still be disbursement pressures, and the whole issue of being accountable to those who are actually putting in funds or money, that is going to be spiking. It's very important that how do you be accountable while you are investing. One of the very challenging areas post-COVID-19 times is the plastic conundrum. We would see now a rise, a very steep rise in the production of medical plastic, expected to be 5 times in the next 2 years. A growing consumption of sanitizers, whole challenge of disposing the plastic waste, pressure on incineration as a solution for destruction. All of these are going to lead to higher greenhouse gas emissions. So today, for example, production of plastic takes about 15% share in the global budget. We're going to see that spiking because we are going to do much more production of medical plastics. We'll see more and more incineration of the plastic waste. And we have to look at how can we address these challenges through many ways, like the contactless healthcare technologies, and also importantly, sustainable packaging. Because remember, the packaging is increasing, and there's going to be more and more. You will see, merchandise coming to you through the web, and then packaging consumes about 40% of the plastic waste. Therefore, you have to look at a new approach towards packaging, what we call as sustainable packaging. Just look at the mass. And what is estimated in a recent study is we expect 1 billion masks used per month. And even if you said that 1% of these masks were disposed incorrectly, that would mean we are talking about 10 million masks per month dispersed in the environment. And if you consider the weight of each mask of 4 grams, then it would entail a dispersion of 40,000 kilograms of plastic in nature. So just remember, what we're talking here is a huge impact when it comes to just mass. But then we have now already opened up a debate on whether we should continue banning the single-use plastic, like in this case, shopping bags. There have been already a reversal taking place on the earlier bans on single-use plastic. So we would see more and more plastic getting to the environment. Shopping bags is the second example. If you look at the impact on the common biomedical waste treatment facilities, well, you have now a higher calorific value to deal with, where the incinerator chambers may not be designed. Maybe the incinerators now operate on lower loads. There could be damaging of the inner lining due to melting of plastic. And there could be also steep increase in the charges for processing. So the downstream industry like incineration also is going to get hit while there is an opportunity. But I would call all these challenges are just tip of the iceberg, because we would now see less public transport to be used. People won't be comfortable in crowded buses and trains. Private modes of transport will increase, more two-wheelers perhaps. Change in the lifestyle, working from home, like the meetings we are doing today, it does have a mental stress. Increased use of sanitizers, disinfectants, cleaning agents, we will see them happening every day in offices, hotels, public places. As I talked earlier, increased production and use of single-use plastic, rise in the packaging waste, and incineration of the COVID contaminated waste leading to emissions, overall net increase in GHGs. Now, if you compare the impact of all these because of COVID-19 pandemic with climate crisis, actually the one due to climate change is far more impacting, far more serious than the pandemic we are facing today. But remember, those changes are happening a bit gradually, although they're showing their teeth through changes and patterns of the typhoons, and you just are witnessing in the Arabian Sea also, you see cyclones emerging. It's happening progressively over time, not like what we see as a death toll every day, which we talk about, or positive cases of corona we talk about. So this is happening, but it's not so much noticed. And it's often said, and this is a very great statement, I would say, that it says that if we truly accepted we were in climate emergency, then every day the news would lead with updates about which countries are reducing emissions and so on and so forth, and how people would be clamoring to make sure that their leaders were adopting these policies. So there is not still a lesson learned from the COVID that there is in fact going to be a huge global impact. Though progressing today seemingly gradually, it could accelerate and it go much beyond control and could be so much irreversible. So we got to draw that lesson and start looking at climate more carefully. I'm going to end my presentation here. We'll be happy to take any questions. My high point at the end to tell you was that, well, COVID is something we are grappling with. There's going to be a big skew in the governance. There's going to be new challenges we all have to face. But remember, that is just not comparable to what we are going to see in the future due to the climate change. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for such a wonderful session. It has definitely helped us understand the importance of environment and the role of environment governance will have in post COVID-19 in all industries. So we would like to have some few questions from audience side. So I would request Yogita to kindly let us know if there are any questions for Dr. Yogita.
Yeah. So, as such, there are no questions from the audience. I think the participants are so integrated into the presentation that it was really a very nice presentation, sir. But there is one comment which I can see that how about self-governance with guidelines set up by government, no license for it. So, sir, can you speak on this? Some few words.
You know, self-governance is a mechanism used when the business is responsibly thinking about environment and is transparent. And while we do have, I would say, examples of excellence in this category of self-regulation in the industry, not that we don't have, but we do have a larger number of businesses who are not so serious, or I must say, looking at environmental compliance as a fundamental duty and done so ethically. So I would say by letting it only to self-regulation is going to be a big risk. We do need both, and that is what many countries have done. So you have a regulatory mechanism in place, but you are also incentivized to go beyond compliance. And I think when that's what everybody says, to be compliant, you got to think about going beyond compliance. So we'll have to stay with the mix of both the regulations as well as a mechanism to make people interested enough for self-regulation.
Yeah, that's a very good answer, sir. Thank you so much. Sheetal, over to you.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, sir. So coming